Another year, another new cartridge. The 277 Fury. Will this be the hot new cartridge of 2022, or will it be my special Wildcat, the double radius, double shoulder 24-26 308? Or maybe it'll be the new 28 375 shot shell Magnum. But then you might just pick up the hot new 1-grain Nerf bullet. All right, I know I'm messing around, guys, but there's an important point here. As sick as we are of all these new cartridges that keep popping up, this is not a new phenomenon. We're going to go way back, and discover a whole bunch of radical new cartridges that have died out over the years because, like we've been complaining about with the recent ones, they're redundant and they're superfluous. As obviously silly as it is to have a Nerf bullet up here and a 28 gauge shell with a 375 H&H stuck in it, this one really isn't all that far-fetched. All I did was took a 308 cartridge and I necked it down to 26, and then I necked part of that neck down to 243 and stuck a bullet on it. But the point is, folks are always messing around with cartridges, trying to come up with the latest and greatest and the wonderful new thing that nobody can resist. And they've been doing it for a long time. And you know, this 277 looks a little bit peculiar right here because it has a steel base with a brass body on top of it. But that's not the first time that thing was tried. They have tried everything over the years. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. Why do we keep trying? Well, let's just go back through history a little bit and find out now. Here is one that died a rather quick, painless death, the 25 WSM. You remember that one? That was the hot new round in 2004. Where is it today? About the same place the 243 WSSM is and the 223 WSSM. And that brings up all those short, fat cartridges that were the rage at the start of the 21st century. And we're talking about the 270, 7mm, 300 WSM, the 325 WSM, and of course the Remington counterpunches, the 7mm SAUM, short action ultra magnum, and a 300 short action ultra magnum. Some of those are still hanging around, and they probably will be for some time. They're pretty darn good cartridges, but they just haven't taken off like a lot of ones these days. And I hate to mention it, but the 6.5 you-know-who, that was a real splash. But this was going on back in the 1960s too. Do you remember the 222 Remington? Came out in 1950, and it was loved by everybody. But what happened? 8 years later, Remington dumped on it by bringing out the 222 Remington Magnum, added about 200 feet per second to the same bullets, and we thought, well, there goes the 222 Remington. Well, 6 years later, they came out with the 223 Remington, and boom, the 222 Remington Magnum was on the gurney on the way to the morgue. That thing is gone. So just that quickly, these cartridges come and go. And how do you know which one to buy? How will you know which one is going to last? Well, a good way to figure it out is with the military rounds like the 223. When you think about it, the 30-06 has been around forever since it came out as a military cartridge. The 308 Winchester, same way. We go all the way back to the 4570 of 1873, and that one is still viable. So there's a good safe pick right there. Now, what else happened in the 1960s? You remember the 6.5 Remington Magnum? Probably not. Came out in 1966 and never really went anywhere. Neither did its cousin, the 350 Remington Magnum, both of them on a belted short version of the 375 H&H case. Well, they're about as long-lived, I think, as that 25 WSSM. But, of course, we're going to go further back than the 1960s for this kind of stuff. Back in the 1950s, 1955, Winchester was coming out with the 243 Winchester. Now, they knew darn well that Remington was about to come out with the 244 Remington, and that was the same caliber, doing almost the same thing. So why did we have to have two of them? Well, of course, it's competition. Winchester and Remington were like this back in those days, and one of them wasn't let the other one get a jump on it. So the 244 Remington came out, going about 100 feet per second faster with the same bullets that the 243 Winchester shot, except The 243 Winchester had a faster twist in its barrel. You could shoot a little bit heavier bullets, and everybody decided that was the one to have, and that poor 244 Remington died on the vine. Still a great little cartridge, but it's pretty much obsolete now. Then we're going to go back even further than that because the 1950s didn't have a corner on the market for cartridges that didn't make it. We'll go clear back to 1937, the 219 Zipper. Remember that hot one? No? Well, that wasn't all that popular either, but boy, at the time, it made quite a splash. I don't know how long it lasted, probably up until the 1960s or so, but the Zipper zipped away, no longer with us. Now let's go back even farther. The early 20th century was a lot like the early 21st century. We had a heck of a bunch of cartridges come out and quickly expire. It is really crazy. Here is a partial list that I drew up. The 405 Winchester. Now, sometimes that one pops up again. It's sort of revived as a nostalgic round. How about the 25 Remington, the 30 Remington, the 32 Winchester self-loading, the 32 Remington, the 32 Ideal? Gosh, there's got to be more than that. Yeah, there's the 33 Winchester, the 35 Winchester, the 35 Winchester self-loading, the 351 Winchester self-loading, the 401 Winchester self-loading, on and on they went. Who remembers any of these? Do they even load them? I think maybe the 405 Winchester is the only one they still load. You might occasionally find a 32 Remington somewhere, but those are pretty much all obsolete, and they all came out somewhere between 1900 and 1910. Man, that is a long list of short-lived cartridges. But you know what the winner is for a lot of cartridge releases and then early demises? The last 30 years of the 19th century, roughly the 1870s until the 1890s. And they were really cranking out a lot of losers in those days. Let's look at this partial list. The 3235 Stevens and Maynard, the 3240 Remington, 32 Long, 3845 Stevens, 3850 Maynard, 3856 Winchester, 3890 Winchester, 4060 Marlin, 4065 Ballard Everlasting. How's that for an oxymoron? Everlasting? I don't think so. But everlasting actually referred to the thickness of the case. They had this idea that if they made a brass case extra thick, they could reload it again and again and it would last forever. Everlasting. And there was a whole series of those everlasting cartridges. Pretty cool. The 4090 Sharps necked. The 4070 Winchester. The 4070 Peabody What Cheer? What cheer? What cheer? For a cartridge? What's that all about? The 44-100 Remington Creedmoor. Oh, what did I just say? The 44-100 Remington Creedmoor? I told you there's nothing new under the sun. The 4060 Peabody Creedmoor. Creedmoor is a rifle range on Long Island, New York, where they had international competition shooting, get this, to 1,500 yards. In the 1880s and 90s, they were shooting to 1,500 yards. So if you think extreme range shooting is a ridiculous new invention, you know, you're as wrong about that as you are about all these excess new cartridges they keep coming out with. Then there was the 4060 Peabody Creedmoor, just said that one. The 45-125 Sharps, you can imagine how long that thing was. And the 5115 Bullard, and that is just a partial list. Now, they had an excuse in those days, black powder. Cartridges were only invented around the 1860s, and I think the first centerfire cartridge was probably 1873 or so with the 4440 Winchester, and that started a rush to develop the new self-contained centerfire rifle cartridges. So they had an excuse to crank out all these various, and each company wanted to make a splash with its own. That's why you would often see the same numbers with a different name behind them. 4570 Sharps, 4570 Government, 4570 Winchester, and on they went. They all wanted market share. Of course, the same thing's happening with the 25 WSSM and all the rest today. Marketing just never changes. But there's an upside to it. We get a lot more choices. Doesn't mean every cartridge is going to be absolutely wonderful or everyone has to love it, but boy, it is sure nice to have the option to choose, right? And that's the benefit of having a lot of different cartridges come out every year, even if they're redundant and superfluous. Now, another reason that the cartridges in the 19th century, the late 19th century, changed so radically and so quickly was because smokeless powder came on board about 1888 or so. Well, boy, you had to jump on the bandwagon and create some new cartridges then. You were necking them down, especially because in the black powder days, you had to have a heavy bullet. You couldn't get your velocities much faster than about 1,700 feet per second without blowing up a gun. So with the new smokeless powders, you could neck that thing down. You had more energy in the powder and you could drive a smaller bullet really fast. And of course, that made up for the weight being missing. Because if you double a bullet's weight, you double its energy. But if you double its velocity, you quadruple its energy. Lighter bullet, less recoil, faster velocity, flatter shooting, all the wonderful things that we work with today. And of course, now we're going with even longer bullets, higher ballistics coefficients. That's the latest rage because we're extending our range, retaining more energy downrange with these new cartridges with crazy names like the 25W SSM. And that's the story here. If you've ever wondered where these new cartridges came from, good old Yankee innovation. We're just cranking them out, and I don't think we're ever going to stop. Hey guys, we're doing another channel on YouTube. It's sort of a podcast channel. So we're putting out our podcasts on the usual podcatchers, but we're also recording it visually so you can watch me boringly sit there and read old articles. But I'm going to start interviewing some old friends and some new ones and having some exciting discussions about, the life of an outdoor writer and a gun writer, as well as tactics and whatever's going on in the gun world and the ammunition world. And then I answer lots of questions on there too, so you might want to tune in. And you can also catch us on rsotv.com. That is our personal television station on which we can put topics dealing with cartridges and reloading and gunsmithing and all the details you can't necessarily show on public forums. rsotv.com, you can find that on ronspomeroutdoors.com website and join up. It's a subscription service. We put out a new video about every week on there, so we're going to try to keep you informed. Let us know what you want to see and hear. I have been in this business now for 50 some years. We're covering hand loading and reloading and bullet trajectories and a little bit of gun tuning and how to mount scopes and anything and everything. So check us out on rsotv.com. We'd love to have you. Hey, this is Ron Spomer. Stay tuned and we're going to find out if that 277 Fury takes over the market.